and welcome to the Unlikely Thru-Hiker with Derick Lugo. So we're going to do a quick technical roundup first, just so everyone knows. Closed captioning is available for this evening's event. Click on the closed captioning button for live transcription, and you can choose to hide or show the captions as needed. Also, today's presentation is being recorded for YouTube. Due to the size of the audience, everyone was muted upon entry. You won't be able to unmute yourself, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. There will be a question and answer session. And to ask a question, just send a question to the host in the chat box. If your name is not displayed and you would like it to be, you can update your name at any point. To change your name, click on participants, hover your mouse over your name, and you should see more as an option. Click on that and you'll see rename. This is where you can change your pronouns if you'd like as well. And today's event is brought by the following co-sponsors: the Legacy Project Signature Series, CCM's Counseling and Wellness Center, and CCM's Parks Program. And just before, so we can do this at the beginning so that you remember for future events, the Legacy Project has another event coming up on Monday, April 11th at 2 p.m., The Business Case of Sustainability with Veronica Johnson. And you can just email legacy@ccm.edu for more information. So with that, I'm going to stop share, and it's my pleasure to introduce Professor John Soltis.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Iden. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Soltis, and I'm the co-director of the Legacy Project at County College of Morris. It is my distinct honor to welcome our special guest tonight, Derick Lugo, author of the acclaimed memoir, The Unlikely Thru-Hiker. As Derick's book tells readers, he had never been hiking before in his life, but when he found some free time a few years back, he decided to change his life completely around. He booked a ticket for Georgia and began his journey near Springer Mountain, the starting point for northbound thru-hikers on the Appalachian Trail. His destination would be Mount Katahdin in Maine, more than 2,100 miles away. For those who don't know, a thru-hiker is someone who hikes from beginning to end on a trail, usually a long trail like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. The AT, as it's known, is arguably the most famous trail in the world, so Derick chose well. For Derick, this journey took him more than 180 days from the end of March to mid-September. Along the way, he took in the beautiful vistas of the Great Smoky Mountains, the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and the Delaware Water Gap, which is located not far from our campus. Perhaps more important than the natural wonders and beautiful sights were the people Derick encountered and the friends he made, friends he came to rely on for conversation, camaraderie, and some laughs, and they also came to rely on him. Derick's story, we hope, will inspire you to enjoy the great outdoors and meet some new, interesting, and kind people. Not everyone can hike 2,100 miles over 6 months, but you could try to enjoy some of the AT in the local area. Head down Route 80 to the Delaware Water Gap, and right before the river, pull off and enjoy a day hike to Sunfish Pond. That trail you're on is probably the AT. Or head up to Sussex County in the Walpack area and enjoy the Appalachian Trail in Stokes State Forest as you hike along a ridge and look down at Culver Lake. Or head even farther north to High Point, the highest point in New Jersey. That's where the AT leaves New Jersey and heads into New York State. As you hike, know that you'll be walking in the footsteps of many people who came before you, including Derick Lugo. Welcome, Derick, to the Legacy Project.
Hey, thank you. I had to mute myself for a second because my dog was making a lot of noise while you were talking. So thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're going to do a Q&A tonight with Derick. I'll get started for the first half an hour, and then we'd love to hear from the audience. Whenever you have that question in your mind, just drop it in the chat and I'll ask it for you on your behalf. We'll get some good conversation going. Let's start with your memoir, which I absolutely love. You title it The Unlikely Thru-Hiker. So yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that word unlikely?
So when I started, you read the book, so you know this, but when I started the AT, I didn't know anything about the outdoors from New York City. Um, I've never camped out, never pitched a tent. I didn't even know if I liked hiking. Okay. And when I first started the AT, that's when I started. So another thing that I didn't know when I walked into it was that there wasn't a lot of people of color that were doing it. And it wasn't like, I'm from New York City, melting pot of the world. So there's, I say, you know, we're off, you know, a bunch of different flavors up in here and I love it. And people were coming up to me and saying, hey, we're so glad you're out here. Thank you for being out here. And I was like, well, I'm glad you out here too. Thanks for being out here, you know, like not knowing what they were really saying. And they were like, no, really, like, we're glad you're here. And, you know, turns out they're like, hey, you know, there aren't a lot of people of color, Latino, blacks or whatever. And I was like, no, that can't be right. That can't be right. And it made me I was kind of sad about that. So I didn't believe it at first. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna find people out here. And I would walk and hike and weeks would go by. And then I think in the beginning, when I was really looking, I think I saw two day hikers that were black, and it was their first time on the trail. And I was like, oh man, this is a thing, huh? So throughout the first half of my through hike, I didn't think I was going to write about it. But once I started sharing my story with people, telling them that, hey, the first time I pitched a tent, the first time, I didn't know how to use any of the gear I had when first time I used it. There's a chapter in the book called Lessons at Springer Mountain. And that's when I learned the things that I should have learned years ago. So getting on a trail, being from New York City, not having any experience. And then not only did I didn't look like a hiker, first of all, not because I'm a person of color, but because I didn't really dress like one either. I had like a bunch of bandanas, you know, I had, you know, my dreads, sometimes I had my dreads out and I had like loose clothes. I have a photo, you got to go on my Instagram, but I have a photo and it looks like I look like a pirate, like Captain Jack Sparrow. That's, you know, and I didn't look anything like your typical hiker, which is great because I always live my life that way, where I'm like, you know what, just do my own thing and, you know, everything will fall into place. But I'll share a quick story that really sealed the deal, where I was like, man, this is something that I need to share. Not necessarily write and tell people that I was the only person of color. Like, look at me, I'm a unicorn on a trail. But no, share my story, because when I finished the Appalachian Trail, it literally changed my life, my career path, and the way I think and feel about people. But I was hiking one day in the rain up a mountain, because, you know, the AT, when in doubt, it always goes up, you know, and we're hiking up a mountain and someone's in front of me and he turns around and sees me, and it's raining hard. It's raining, like the wind's blowing, raining sideways. And he turns around and is like, hey, are you Mr. Fabulous? And I go, yeah. And I think about it and I go, how'd you know? And he's like, because you're the only black person on the trail. It's 2,200 miles, okay? And everyone knew who I was because I was the only person of color on the trail. But that said, too, I think because I don't know if you noticed, but I like to talk. I like to share stories. I'm a story person. And I also love hearing stories. I'm that guy that can listen to an older person tell stories for hours. And I said, you know what? I want to be that dude when I'm older, you know, when I'm old guy, which hopefully it'd be a long time, and I love sharing stories. So in order to share stories, I need that experience. So yeah, that's a long way of answering that question, but unlikely is not necessarily the way I look, but unlikely who I was, the person I was a couple weeks before. Because when I decided I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail, within a week and a half, I was on the trail, you know, and people prep, they like prep to like, actually I'm prepping now to do the CDT, and it's a little bit more prepping than I did on the AT, but I started maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, you know, where people do it, they prepare for like a whole year, 2 years, maybe several. So I walked into it not knowing what I was doing, and I survived. It was funny. I saw a hiker that I met the first day, and then I saw him a month later, and he was like, dude, you're still on the trail? And I was like, what, you thought something bad was going to happen? What? Like, they were so surprised I was still on the trail. So there's a lot of reasons why I was unlikely on the trail.
Were you expecting the people that you met to become kind of friends on the trail, and a couple of them maybe even lifelong kind of contacts for you?
That's one of the things that I did not expect. Was for me, through hiking was just the trail, the terrain. I didn't know there was a hiking outdoor community that really would shape the rest of my life. And on the trail, in real life, when you meet a stranger, you need kind of like that icebreaker, but on the trail, that icebreaker is through hiking or just being out there. And within a day of meeting someone, your friends, within 2 days hanging out with them, your best friends, and after that, your family for life. So I have so many friends from all over the place now, but not just when I through hike, but as soon as I got off the trail, I did nothing but I was just talking about it. I started writing about it, doing talks right away. And that's how I was people started to know my story. And now I have friends that have read my book. I have whoever, follows me on Instagram, when I'm on Instagram, which is Instagram, Facebook, but I focus on Instagram the most, where I share my stories. If you send me a message, I make sure I respond. So that's how I started getting, these connections with people and all that. So this outdoor community, it's amazing.
You talked about your trail name. Could you talk a little bit about the kind of the tradition of trail names and how you got that?
So my trail name, and I didn't name myself, but my trail name is Mr. Fabulous. Okay. And a trail name is something you get. You're out on the trail doing something out of the ordinary, living, you're outside of the quote unquote real world. And you get like a nickname on the trail. It's either something you did, your personality, the way you look. And you don't necessarily need to take the first name that's given to you, because it's going to be with you for 5 to 6 months, if not more. And mine I've had for 10 years now. So you want to make sure it's something that's, that you dig, that you like sharing with people. Because one of the main questions you get when people find out you're through hiking is, what's your trail name? So I was hiking with a group I named the Moving Village, because I have a tent, we pitch a tent, it looks like a village, and then we up and move, and everyone, I met them like 4 days into my hike. Within a week on the Appalachian Trail, everyone had a trail name except for me in that group. And they said, Derick, you know what, when we get into camp, we want to get to know you. Let's share a little bit about yourself, and we'll get a trail name for you. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm down with that. I want a trail name. So, but I didn't want something that was just, that wouldn't fit. So I started sharing a little bit about myself, how I joke, I told people that, because hikers are known for not bathing for a while, for days, a week, 2 weeks. And I was like, I ain't doing that. I'm not, that's not how I'm going to roll. My friend Nina in the book was like, you're the most metrosexual Black man in New York City. And that was true, because I get my, my hair did, my nails done, all that. I would make sure I was fresh and clean. I said, I'm not going to go that route. And I said, I joked around saying, I wish I could get a full length mirror that I can fold up and put in my backpack, and I can pull it out and just make sure I look good. I said I would shave at streams, which I did. I didn't grow a beard at all. I was always clean shaven, and day hikers would see through hikers. And this one hiker told me a story about he saw a day hiker, and he asked if they saw me. And they were like, you mean the guy that's the clean shaven guy, the guy that looks all fresh and clean, he hasn't been hiking at all? I was like, that's me. So I joked around that I that's the way I was going to do it. And a hiker was like, hey, you're a Mr. Fabulous. And I said, there's no way I'm going to call myself Mr. Fabulous. It's not going to happen. There's no way. Because imagine that, someone come up to me and they're like, what's your trail name? And I'm like, hi there, I'm Mr. Fabulous. it sounds creepy, and he was like, yeah, if you say it like that, don't say it like that. And he convinced Overdrive was his trail name. And he's like, look, use it for a couple of days and see how it feels. I was like, all right, I'll do it. I felt I didn't want to, I was uncomfortable with that trail name. It took me a while. People would ask me what my trail name was, and I would almost apologize. I'm like, they call me Mr. Fabulous, but I didn't name myself, I'm sorry. And then they're like, and the reaction I thought, excuse me, the reaction I thought I would get, let me drink some water real quick. the reaction I thought I would get, like, I thought they would say, who are you calling yourself Mr. Fabulous? Like, and I just didn't want to go there with that name. And it wasn't the reaction I got. People were smiling, laughing. They loved the story. And again, I'm all about stories and wanted my trail name to have a story behind it. So I started getting comfortable with it. I'll tell you the one story that sealed the deal, that I was like, you know what, I'm going to use Mr. Fabulous. So I'm like a few days calling myself Mr. Fabulous. And I'm hiking by myself, and there's a group of elderly hikers, about a dozen of them going southbound. I'm going north. I step aside, they talk to me, they find out, I'm through hiking, wishing me luck and all that stuff. And the last lady, she was older than they were. Like, she's definitely in her hundreds, or like she was older than the Appalachian Trail. Like, she's like 200 years old. She was little, she was like, had a cane. She had an aide with her. She was moving really slow, really cute, short, small lady. And she heard I'm through hiking, and she comes up to me and she says, so what's your trail name? And I go, ma'am, it's Mr. Fabulous. And without missing a beat, she goes, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for a Mr. Fabulous my entire life. And she reaches up, gives me a kiss on my cheek, and kind of leaves with like a little pep in her step. She's like twirling her cane, and like her aide is chasing after her. And I'm like, what just happened here? Like, is Mr. Fabulous like the cure for like old age? I'm like, I love that. So I decided from that moment on, you know what? People like it. We can joke around about it. And it's not just about me being Mr. Fabulous. It's about everyone feeling fabulous when I share the story and all that. So, and to this day, I mean, in the beginning, I thought it would be weird to have someone call me Mr. Fabulous if we weren't on the trail. But since I've been doing this for so long, and with the book being out, I go by Derick or Mr. Fabulous, and people, if they know me, they understand the trail name. And that's what I love about trail names. And even before that, I would give people nicknames. I just love nicknames, So when I heard about that, I was like, yeah, I'm down with this. I think I named like 2 or 3 people on the trail. So yeah, that's how I got my trail name.
I love one of the themes of the book and your stories is that you did it on your own terms. You didn't skip any sections. You stuck to who you were. You met so many great people. Was that important for you, that the trail would change you, but also that you would make sure to do it on your terms?
Yes, that was important to me, because I saw, and the one saying that we all say on the trail is hike your own hike. Okay. And there's no judgment on the trail when it comes to through hikers. You do it your own way. There's people that yellow blaze is when like you get someone that picks you up and like drives you up to like further north or something so you can be with friends and stuff. So you're skipping the trail. I wanted to do the entire trail because it was the first time I've ever done anything like that before. And I really wanted to soak in that experience, every single bit of it. And I had chances to like skip sections of it. I know friends that were hiking with me that skipped sections. And I just said, no, I'm going to do every single bit of it. Because I knew it was going to be a story as well, and I wanted to cover all of it. And people with slack pack and there's nothing wrong with the way they're doing it. Some people would they'll go to a hostel and they'll get a smaller bag and they'll hike up, like maybe I say up, but they hike along the trail for like 15 miles, and they're like skipping because their pack is so light. They got a day pack. It's like, a little kid's pack, pink and all that with like colors and cartoons and stuff. And I'm like, I ain't doing that. And they'll do 10, 15, 20 miles. And then they'll go back and they'll get a ride to where they got off, which is great. I think it's cool if you want to do it that way. And I was like, nah, you know what? I'm going to go, even if it's painful, I'm going to do it. And even more so now than ever, because now I'm not even doing this for myself anymore. I do it because I'm sharing it with others, and I have people now follow. I have an audience that want to learn about the outdoors. They want to, even if I do, after I do this like 3,100 mile hike this year, I may end up doing another 300 on the long trail in Vermont. So, which is the entire length of Vermont. And I'm not doing it for myself. Trust me, I didn't think I was going to through hike ever again. This was 10 years ago. I was like, I think I'm done. I can do other stuff. But then I voiced something that I think the universe was like, oh, really? I got you. I said I would do another through hike if there was another story there and I had some support and people were really there to for the story and all that. And sure enough, someone reached out, couple companies, brands, and I was like, man, I had to open my mouth. I guess I'm through hiking again. And here's the thing, guys. There's, if you guys probably know this, but I'll share it anyways. There's 3 long distance trails. You got the Appalachian Trail, you have the Continental Divide Trail, and then you have the Pacific Crest Trail. Those are the 3 main trails. If you do all 3 of them, you're a triple crowner. I never wanted to be a triple crowner. I finished the Appalachian Trail. I said, I'm gonna do shorter trails. You know, I'm good with that. I'm done. I don't have anything to prove. And now that I'm doing the Continental Divide, I got a message from a friend of mine. He's such a sarcastic guy. And I'm like, man, and he's in the book. Bam Coleman, he's in the book. He's one of those guys that like you got to get to know him to really dig him. And I luckily there's a lesson in that one where I met him. I was like, what's up with this dude? And got to know him. Like we were in camp alone and got to know the guy. There was a lot of lessons on a trail where you take the time to get to know someone. It could be a beautiful thing. But he sent me a message on Instagram or Facebook when I mentioned when I announced that I was gonna do the Continental Divide Trail, and he was like, you can do 1 of the trails, you can do 3 of the trails, but you cannot do only 2 of them. And I was like, son of a Brooklyn Bridge, you know, like I just wanted to, you know, I wanted to do 1, now I'm doing 2. And now it's like, I don't have to be a triple crowner, but now it's expected that I do the 3rd one. So, and supposedly this is what I hear, that the CDT is the hardest one. So if that's the case, then maybe, you know, I may do the Pacific Crest Trail. If someone's willing to sponsor me, oh, there I go again. There I go again.
We have a question in the chat from Ava. Ava would like to know, when you were on the AT, what was a typical day like? Can you kind of take us from like waking up to going to bed?
Yeah. It was agony. Like it was horrible. No. So this is what we're doing. You know, we wake up in the morning and you're hiking, and then you do it all day long, eat, and then you do it again, you know, like it's every day. So what I would do is I would leave camp 2 hours after everyone else. Cause I'm like, I don't function fast in the morning. Okay. I'm just like getting up, I'll meditate, you know, just really just like, it's too stressful to like get going for me. It's like, no, man, let me just wake up and like enjoy waking up, you know, maybe, you know, like I like the process of waking up. You know, I don't like just rushing to do anything. I'm out on a trail to get away from that. You know, I'm not going to do that on the trail. I don't have to set a time or anything like that. Unless we were going into town and I was the first one up and I was like, let's go into town. I need to bathe. But I would be the last one up. I would leave maybe a couple hours after everyone else. People would leave at 7, 8. I would leave at 9, 10. So I would get up. I would make oatmeal. You know, I have my mini stove, oatmeal, coffee. And at the time I was eating Pop-Tarts. I probably won't be doing it this time around because I'm a vegan now. And unless, you know, I can find one that's not vegan, you know, that's vegan, then I'm not going to do Pop-Tarts. But I was a vegetarian at the time. So I would eat oatmeal, have my breakfast, and then I would just pack everything up and I would go. And I swear, within an hour of hiking, I'm hungry again. So I had like a bunch of energy bars. At the time, Snickers was my thing. I can't do Snickers anymore, but I would start hiking, and by, I would say 11, 12, time for lunch. And then lunch was like, it depends on what I was carrying, but a lot of times peanut butter. To this day, I love peanut butter. I always love peanut butter. Peanut butter and like tortilla, I just roll it up, and then that would be like my lunch. And then more bars after that. And the thing with me is when I'm hiking, I would be the last one to leave and the last one to get to camp, not because I was behind. A lot of times, sometimes I would catch up to other hikers, but I would get into camp around 5, 6 before the sun would go down. And they were like, oh, Mr. Fabulous, he's probably just talking to someone. Because I cannot be on the trail without talking to someone. Like, you're in the wilderness. If someone's like going the opposite way, I'm not just going to walk by them. This is not New York City. You know, like I'm going to stop and we're going to at least say hi. And I just found myself talking to people for a while. And that was my thing, where if I'm going to experience this, I'm going to experience it all the way, not just my point of view, but others. And the one thing that I learned was with trail magic, and trail magic is when someone gives you, because hikers, we're burning a lot of calories, thousands of calories, and we're never going to replace it. We're always hungry. And the best trail magic is when people leave, like locals leave, like a cooler of sodas or snacks or stuff by the trailhead. My favorite is, when they pick us up and they take us into town and I can shower and stuff like that. But one of my favorites actually was when I was in New Jersey and New York section of the Appalachian Trail, and there was a heat wave and all the water sources were dry. And the locals knew it, so they would leave gallons of water by the trailhead, and that was like the best trail magic I would get. So I don't know where I was going with this, and I don't even remember what the question was, but I think I answered it. Did I?
No, you got it. Yeah, typical day on the trail. So you got it.
Yeah.
Talking about the water sources, what did you use? Did you use a straw or did you tablets? Has that changed?
No, it changed. I used Catadine water filter. It's like the pump. And it has a hose. The hose goes to the whatever your water source is, a river, lake, whatever. And then there's another hose on the top that you put in, like if you're carrying one of these, you just put it in there and you just pump away. And as soon as that water comes out, it's ready to drink. And that's what I used. I started the long trail last year and wanted to switch it around. So I used what's it called? Not Be Free. What's the other one? Sawyer Squeeze. The small one, and it was the first time I changed it up, and I never had a problem with the water filter. I never got sick. People were actually like wanting to use my water filter because there were times where it was just mud, and I had that pump, and it was just like taking all the debris out, and it was nice and clean. And I said, you know what? Let me try to lighten my load, and I hear that everyone's using this Sawyer Squeeze. Let me use it. So on my second day on the long trail, people tell you the worst water source to get, like that can really get you sick, is Beaver Dam water store. Like that can get you. So you gotta make sure you filter that. I wasn't drinking enough water the first day, so I wanted to like make sure I hydrated myself the second day. And I was at the Beaver Dam, and my water filter wasn't working. I didn't know this, and I'm drinking tons and tons of unfiltered water, and these destroyed me. So I'm kind of afraid of using I had a bad experience with, I know it's great and everyone uses it. I understand that. But I decided to kind of go with that same system, but go with the Catadine, and they have Be Free, where it's like the water filter is a little bit bigger, still light, and it kind of filters a lot better. It doesn't clog as much as the Sawyer Squeeze. So I'm going to go with that one this time around. And I have like a bottle that like I can just squeeze it and it goes, and I can drink straight from it or whatever. But the Catadine really worked for me. I loved it. And if I wasn't trying to lighten my load as much, I would probably go back to it.
We have a question from Olivia. If I have it right, in the book, 10 years ago, you were vegetarian, and then you said you're vegan now. Does your hiking journey that you've been on, and this change of life in some ways, has that kind of influenced you to become a vegan?
I've always been a health nut. I've always wanted to make sure that I took care of my body, because I was always doing something active. I was a runner for a while, and I'm just trying to live forever, and I'm not saying that, the way I do it is the best for everyone. I'm not that vegan, that type of vegan. Like I have friends that could eat meat in front of me. I'm okay with it. But I've always wanted to, and vegans are known to like, kind of like, if I had two vegan friends that knew I was a vegetarian, they're like, why don't you just do vegan? Why are you eating tuna, man? What's up with that? Why are you doing, like, they made me feel guilty. And I was like, I ain't doing it just because you acting like that. But I decided to try it for like a week, and or a month. And it ended up being, now it's like 6 years now that I've been a vegan. It works for me. I want to put stuff in my body that works for me. And I know when I was eating, I would eat like salmon once a week or some kind of fish once a week, and it just wasn't sitting with me right. And then once I stopped doing that, then I started feeling like a lot better. So I just work with I listen to my body, and trust me, if I could eat a burger a day and it made me feel, and I was fine, I would do it. But that being said, I started being a vegan. There's two different types of vegans. You got vegan for self and vegan for animals. I started for myself, but now I lean toward for animals as well, because I do love, especially now that I have a dog. I can't imagine, like it's just it just breaks my heart. So, but I do it for myself, and I'm doing it as a vegan on this long trail, and I have never done it before. So I'm curious. And the thing is, it's not really hard, because ramen noodles, as long as you don't use those packets, ramen noodles is good. That's vegan. Peanut butter is vegan. Tortilla is vegan. The hardest thing, though, I will say, is trying to get a vegan energy bar, because they ain't nothing like Snickers. I used to love Snickers. That used to give me a great boost. I have not replaced that yet. So unless Snickers makes a vegan, I don't know what I'm gonna do about that.
We had a few questions come in about some of your earlier comments about the lack of diversity in the hiking world 10 years ago. Have you seen that change over the last decade since you took this journey? Like, do you think it'll be different when you head out next week for the next big hike?
I know it has changed, because as soon as I got off the trail, this was my life. This is what I'm doing. And I've been talking about it. I've been talking about the outdoors before all these organizations that you see now have been doing it. I think the oldest one is Outdoor Afro. All right. And I remember talking to them because the founder reached out to me when she heard about she heard about me through my talks, even before my book came out. And they were one of the only ones like 10 years ago. Now there's a bunch of different groups, which I love. And I've collaborated with them and all that. But my thing is, I want to share the outdoors for everyone. And when I first started, the people that were really supporting me were people like, it was just not people of color, just white people, I'm gonna be honest. And I always said, and I have a podcast also where I didn't want to just focus on BIPOC or Latinos or anything like that. I wanted it to be, because I'm a big believer that the outdoor community is made up of a bunch of different communities. It's not just one. And I didn't want to do what, us Latinos, Black folks were complaining about, that, we're not being included. I didn't want to do that with whatever, because now I have a platform, and people listen to me, and I didn't want to just talk about like, hey, I want to just do this for the BIPOC community. I didn't want to do that, because then I'm turning my back away from the people that supported me from the jump, the people that were buying my book, and I'm from, again, New York City. For me, it's, I have people around me that are from all over the place, and now even so much more now. I think there are more people on the trail. I know one person of color that's actually going to thru-hike the Continental Divide this year as well. Not as many as I wish. And I know the percentage at one point, this was maybe a couple of years ago, I don't know if it changed, but I know it's like less than it's like -1% or some of people of color are people on a trail are people of color on the trail. So it hasn't really, it's getting there. But I also think that there have been people out there of color, but we may not be, and I can't speak for the entire Black community. I can tell you about the people around me, my family, my friends, and what, why we weren't out there and why I wasn't out there and why I found out about it when I was older. But I will say that I think it's because we didn't grow up that way. It's not something that we say, hey, let's go out in the woods and pitch a tent in the woods in the South. Let's do that. Like, nah, bad things happen in the woods. We don't do that. Like, even in the movies, like that guy with the machete, that guy with the chainsaw. Yeah, like that's what we thinking of, And not just that, what about Bigfoot? You don't know, no one knows about, people don't talk about Bigfoot, how Bigfoot could be like, that dude might be suspect. I don't know about that. But it's a scary place for us, more so because of history also. Bad things happen to the people of color in the woods, Underground Railroad. There's a history. You got lore where you get taught that, again, bad things happen in the woods. And also financially, it's like, we don't have, you know, my parents didn't have gear, you know, like when I decided I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail, it wasn't cheap. And I did this, I got everything in like a week and a half before I went. And you know, it thinned my pockets. I was not, you know, and I didn't think about that. Luckily, I was in a place where I had saved enough to do something like this. That's why I decided to do it. But, you know, financially, you know, we can't do it unless, you know, we have a family member that's hands something down to us, like a tent or whatever, and teaches us the things, you know. And that's what I use my platform now, because, you know, you get companies that want to give me stuff, you know, and I go, I don't need it, but if you want to give it to me so I can give it to my audience, because I do a lot of giveaways, and I want to give it to people that, you know, like I went to this this thing last year where there was an organization that invited 5 Black families that had never camped out before. And they had a truck full of gear, that brand new gear. They were like, we're going to lend you this, like tent, sleeping bag, headlamp, anything you think of for camping, you know, cooler, everything. And then later on during the campfire, camp talk, they were like, oh, but by the way, that all that new camp stuff that we lent you, we're actually going to give it to you. Okay, it's yours. And that's what I want to do, you know? And because there's you know, that's one of the reasons why we're not out there. Another reason is that when I was a kid, there wasn't a book that looked like this. Look at this dude. Like, it's funny. A friend of mine told me, I told my friend I'm going to give, she was like, I told my friend I'm going to give her a hiking book, an outdoor book. And I sent her your book, and she got the book. She was like to her friend, did you send me the wrong book? Because like this don't, like although it says, you know, Thru-Hiker, you look at the cover, it's like, So, you know, if there was a book like this when I was a kid, man, it'd be great. I didn't learn about this till I was older. And also I'm a big reader. So I found out through A Walk in the Woods by, you know, Bill Bryson. And now people are reaching out to me and saying, hey, we thru-hiked because of your book, you know, which is great. That's the best compliment you can give me, you know, and it's not just thru-hiking, just going out there in the outdoors. I love when readers tell me that they read the book, you know, to their kids. There's no curses in here, by the way, because I want to make sure everyone can read it. I have words that sound like curses, like son of a Brooklyn Bridge, you know, the close to it. But I wanted to make sure that it was a fun read and that you can read it to the kids. Cause, you know, I want everyone to like, to know what this adventure was. And if I had stuff in there that wasn't good, then like, you know, it defeats the purpose, defeats why I'm trying to share this.
My friend, Dr. Jill Shenham, I know she just recently finished the book as well. And she asks that a theme in the book seems to be the importance of relationships with people rather than just like the beauty of nature. Can you discuss these relationships and also maybe how they were different than New York City, where, you know, essentially where you came from, Georgia?
Yeah, well, when I first got on a trail, there's a chapter called a Suspicious Mind, I think it's called. It's been a while since I wrote it, and it talked about my experiences in New York City, where a stranger would come up to you in the street and they want something from you. You know, a lot of times you're like, someone comes up to you and I'm like, where's my wallet? You know, I want to make sure you're away. You know, you're not trying to take something from me. And so I walked into this like, okay, you know, I love people, but, you know, I want to make sure, you know, I'm in the woods. So I want to make sure I'm safe. I take care of myself. And people saw that I had zero experience. They knew I didn't know what I was doing. I was not a thru-hiker or a hiker. But they never voiced it to me. There was no judgment about it on the trail. And I was seeing how people were helping me in the book, first chapter, how someone helped me, taught me how to pitch a tent, I learned how to use the water filter, stove, all those things. And hikers were just coming up to me and just happy that I was out there. And I've never seen anything like that before. New York City, you walk by someone, you just walk by them, you don't say hello. And that was another thing when I got off the trail. When I was in New York City, I see someone, I start talking to them, like, no, I can't talk to them. This is New York, man, you can't do that. Once in a while, I would nod. If I see someone like give me eye contact, I would nod and I would get a nod back. And I was like, that's the closest you're going to get in New York City, you know? And that was the difference. That was the big thing. It was that people would talk to me, not even knowing who I was. And everyone I felt like had a story, was interesting. You know, I was hanging out with people that I probably would never hang out in, you know, in the quote unquote real world, or never have the opportunity to hang out with. And everyone, there's no judgment. Everyone's doing the same thing, like I said before. And we just help. I learned that the outdoor community just wanted everyone to succeed, to the point where like we would get sad when someone was off the trail. And we're like, oh man, I wanted people to summit the same, everyone on the AT to summit the same day I did. You know, that mountain would have fell because I wanted everyone to be up there with me. And it's not possible. Even with the moving village, like there was like 10 to 12 of us. Sometimes it was 15, depending in and out. And only, I think 2-3 of us finished the entire thing, and not at the same time. So the outdoor community, it was just, to this day, and I wanted to make sure in the book that I voiced that, because I wasn't going to I'm not going to paint a pretty picture about the mountain. I wasn't going to do that. You come out here and do it, you know. And obviously some people can't do it, and you know, you read it and you learn from what you read and experience it that way. But I also wanted people to understand that, especially my family, friends, and the community that aren't used to being outdoors, that are afraid of it. I wanted to make sure, like my brother, when I got off the trail, my brother was like, because he was telling me, and it's in the book, he was like, look, man, why don't you get a machete? And, you know, because it's, you know, it's dangerous to get a machete. They come in small sizes. You can strap it to your chest. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. But even like when I came back, he was like, yo, if you could do it, I can do it. All of a sudden, like everyone was like an expert of the Appalachian Trail, you know, because I finished it. All my friends that didn't even know how to pronounce the Appalachian Trail were experts, and they all wanted to do it. My friend Nina, that's in the book, I would take her to do day hikes. She had never done that before. We got some shoes for her. I think we got her some running shoes, some trail runners. And we got on a trail, did a day hike. She loved it. So that's what it's about for me. You know, that I wanted to make sure that what was so special about this experience for me? What was it? Was it the scenery? Was it, you know, being in the outdoors? What was it? Yeah, that was important. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that this outdoor community is something special. And I didn't go into this saying that's what it's going to be about, but I wanted to share the special moments that were important to me and put it in the book. And it just happened to be that it was with other people. You know, there's a lot more dialogue in this book, and I took it out. The book was actually 400 pages. So, you know, I had to cut it in half because my publisher was like, you got to cut that in half. And that's what came out of it. Whatever was important to me, I make sure it was in the book, and people aren't drawn to that. We're drawn to other people. You know, we need other people as much as like we don't think we do. Like, you know, like I like being alone, but also being with other people is really special. So I wanted to make sure I feature that.
All right, we have tons of questions coming in. This is really good. So one was about logistics. Either you could talk about the AT or maybe the hike you're about to do. Do you use resupplies? Like, do you have packages that go to post office locations to help you out?
Yeah, on the Appalachian Trail, I'll try to make these answers shorter because I know we're running out of time and I want to answer a lot more questions. So on the Appalachian Trail, I didn't do a resupply because I didn't know. Like I knew you could do that, but I was like, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to go. And it turns out that you don't need to do that on the Appalachian Trail. The trail, I think the longest is the 100-mile wilderness, and you need like, you know, I don't know how, it depends on how long it takes you, but as long as you have enough for that 100 miles. If you have like 4 to 5 days of food, and then you can resupply because the trail goes into town, you can hitch a ride. I never had a problem resupplying. Now the CDT is different where you're out there, and there's some towns that you can't resupply. So I teamed up with Obos, the footwear company, and I sent maybe like 4 or 5 boxes to them. And then I'm leaving 4 or 5 boxes here. So I have maybe like a total of 8 boxes, 8 to 10. And if I think I need them at a certain town, I'll send a message to whoever has a box and say, hey, send this box to this town. And I didn't go looking like how many days of food I need. I just said 5 days of food to get me going. If I'm hungry, if I don't eat a day, I'm pretty sure I'll survive. As long as I have water, I'm good. I'm not too worried about that. I don't want to worry too much about the details of that. I do want it to make sure I'm covered, but I also don't want to, I want to approach this kind of the way I approached the AT, where there was no stress walking into it, you know?
For those who don't know about this big trail that you're about to start next week, where are you going tomorrow, and where do you begin this? Where do you end it?
I'm going to New Mexico tomorrow, and it starts at the border. I'm gonna hike. I start hiking next week because I wanted to actually get used to, like, you know, the atmosphere and all that, and maybe do a couple hikes before I actually get on the trail. But it starts at the border of Mexico and New Mexico. It goes through New Mexico, then it goes into Colorado, Wyoming, and it hits the border. I'm drawing a blank, and it hits all the way up to Montana, the border of Montana and Canada. So it's 3,100 miles. I start in the desert, which I've never hiked in the desert. Guys, I don't even know if I still got it in me. So we'll see. I like to tell people that because, like, what people are going to say is like, oh, you hiked the Appalachian Trail, you got this. No, I don't got this. That was 10 years ago. You know, if you want to see if I survive, watch me. Like, follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, and there's a story in there. So yeah, it's been like, you know, oh, hold on, I got a message. I want to make sure, because I think someone that's actually gonna that lives here is gonna do a talk as well. So in 10 minutes. So, but we got time. Yeah. So I don't, you know, I know I'll do it, but it's different. It's a different hike.
Razy tells us, just as an FYI, that Lara bars and Go Macro are great vegan bars if you want to consider those.
That's what I shipped ahead. Those were the only ones that that I could find. So
how about extreme weather? Because you could get, I mean, you did, right? Get really cold temperatures in the beginning and at the end. And if you don't finish the CDT early enough, you could be really facing some heavy snow up in Montana, right?
Yeah, no, I think if you start too early, and I try not to overthink this. I know people that actually, like, they're looking at the weather like months before, you know, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. I'll drive myself crazy. Also, I kind of wanted to approach it where like I did with the AT, because I was ignorant. So I jumped in and I did it. If I think too much about it, then I don't know about this. The weather, I hear, like, if you start too early, there may be too much snow in Colorado. There's like a sweet spot. And I'm hitting the trail the middle of April. But there may be times where, yeah, weather may be an issue, and I'll just stay somewhere. You know, I'll play it by ear. I'm not gonna put myself in a situation where I could get hurt. So there's no set day where I have to finish. So
we have a lot of hiking clubs on the call tonight, and we had a question from Daniel. What can hiking clubs do more to increase participation of people of color in the outdoors?
I would say just continue sharing stories. Like, I do a lot of talks with these organizations, and I would say reach out to people that are doing it, you know, that, like, I could share someone that doesn't look like me. Let's just go up. Let's just say it. Someone that's white shares my story, shares my exact story, will not get the reaction from the Latino and Black community that I get, you know? So have someone that looks like who you're trying to draw in. And I know I hate to say that, but people feel comfortable when they can relate to someone, you know, not necessarily the way they look, but if they can relate to them, you know? And I think that's what I try to do with my stories is, have people, and you don't even have to be a person of color. You could just be someone that's, like, never hiked before, you know, and like, oh, I could understand that. Like, I get that now, you know, you made me feel like I could do this, you know? So it's all about being relatable, and it's all about the relationship that you build with people. You can't tell people to do something, like kids. You can't tell them to do something. You have to actually, you know, like, you can't force a kid to love sports. They have to see that for themselves. And maybe if you love baseball, they'll see it and they'll love it, and that's what it's about. Just relationship, build a relationship with people. Don't just say, hey, do the outdoors because it's great for you. Do it. You do it and just have people. And it's not hard to find people of color that are actually sharing. We live in a world now that social media is, prominent, and it's like, for me, I love it because I don't focus on just like Facebook, just being on Facebook. I use it for works because I say it's like the best free marketing tool out there, especially with what I'm doing right now to share my stories. So you can find anyone in the world that we live right now that do not look like your average hiker, if there is an average looking hiker, so it's not hard. It's about relationships.
Todd asks about trail magic and a good story that you might have. Are you expecting some trail angels, trail magic on this upcoming hike too to help you out?
This one's different. I have support. So I have people. Are we going to go over 7 o'clock? Because if we are, I can walk downstairs if you guys don't mind. Because I don't mind going over 7. I just want to make sure the person that's doing this talk can actually stand.
I would say we got like 2 more questions left.
Okay. Because I don't mind. I can do another hour on this. I don't care. So the question, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Do you have any good trail magic stories, or are you expecting some trail angels or trail magic?
I got the best trail magic to start with. I have a hiker. I may have mentioned him in the book, named Solo, and he lives in New Mexico, and he said he's going to support me throughout the entire state of New Mexico and possibly the entire CDT. So that means water in the desert. He's going to make sure I have water, resupply in towns where I can't get food. And I shipped a lot of stuff to him. That's the biggest trail magic I'm having. And I think I'll find more because of the companies and the organizations that I teamed up with. And when I hit Montana, I have Obos there, there, and we're going to do a talk. I'm going to do a talk in New Mexico, actually, a week, 100 miles into my thru hike. Right after that, I have a trail days in New Mexico. I'm going to do a talk, and they're going to be there. So I do have support from followers, people that I teamed up that are sponsoring. So yeah, I got some really good, from the jump, some really good trail magic here.
And the last 2 questions, quick ones. Caitlin asks, what is the biggest life lesson that you have learned from your hiking experiences?
People, I can say this again, people. I went into the AT not knowing, that how amazing people are. So yeah, it would be people. So I have to shorten these quick.
And finally, I think everyone on this call, myself included, will be following you over the next few months. How can we follow you?
Follow me through Instagram or Facebook it's at Derick Lugo. And I'm going to be posting everything on Instagram. I also have a YouTube that I'm going to try to do a vlog. And I have the Unlikely Thru-Hiker Facebook as well. But everything that goes on, I post on IG it'll go automatically straight to Facebook. So.
Well, yeah. Derick, we wish you a healthy and happy hike over the next few months. We're going to be following, and we're going to check in and have you back next year, hopefully. Maybe you can hike with us in Jersey.
Yes, 100%. Love Jersey. Being from New York City, and I'm like, when I hiked through Jersey, I was like, wow, Jersey is amazing. So yes, that'll happen. Love you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Have a great night.